Welcome to Chapter 5. I hope you had a good week. Now we're going to be talking about diversity. Diversity is something that we're learning more and more about. Many of the norms that you live with nowadays are created by very homogeneous groups, and they don't necessarily reflect reality because they were lacking a diverse input when the decisions were made. And it's something we have to live with every day. And a lot of times, stereotypes have created this problem. You know, I'm retired, and I can get a bunch of military guys talking about the military, and most people would not understand it because they aren't military. But if I got a bunch of non-military people talk about the military, the military people would be like, what are they talking about? I don't understand that. It goes both ways. We have these stereotypes, and the military would see something done by civilians, and the military group would normally say, civilians. They stereotype all civilians to do so and so. So stereotypes are these preconceived notions we have about something, and we use it as a cognitive tool so our minds don't get overwhelmed trying to understand every little thing about every person. We put them into groups, and it's a survival thing for your mind. But on the other hand, sometimes it's beneficial. If you're alone in the jungle and you see a lion, then stereotypically you're going to think that's danger. But unfortunately, we as a society have created those danger stereotypes and things that aren't really dangerous, but over the years we have been made to believe they are dangerous. And it affects how we operate and how we do things. Now, when you have groups, homogeneous groups of people that are alike, a lot of times you have high context. Many things can be taken for granted because they all understand what you're talking about. I think I used the example before about a grocery cart in Louisiana saving it. I didn't know what it meant, but in the Cajun culture, everybody knew what it meant. So if you have a diverse group, more often than not, you have what they call low context. And low context means that you can't take everything for granted. You have to explain things in a way where everybody can understand them. You know, language is an important thing. We use it all the time, and we use it in a way to create a common understanding of stuff. And it can be local, it can be gender, it can be jargon. In the military, we use jargon all the time, like snafu. You probably heard the term snafu. It's an acronym, means situation normal, all effed up. Many of you may not have known that, but it's jargon that we use, and we use jargon in every business that there is. Have you ever gone to heard somebody say file 13? File 13 means throw it in the trash. Um, they have jargon in auto repair. They have jargon in computers that people don't understand. They have medical terms or jargon, and most people don't understand what the doctor's saying. And that's a time that they need to worry about low context because we don't understand them. We need to understand it to put it in what we call layman's terms. Local, like I told you about, the saving the cart. A funny story, a friend of mine are from England, and they said that they've experienced this themselves, but I was at getting school supplies with a friend of mine, a girl that was from England. And she was an attractive young lady, and there was like this 16-year-old kid waiting on us, and we got pads and pencils and papers, and she couldn't find what she was looking for, and she said, "Excuse me, where's the rubbers?" And the boy was like, and then she realized that she should have said erasers. So her language from her culture did not match the situation that boy was working in the store in. Nonverbal is a lot of times cultural driven. It is culturally driven. You know, most of you say, okay, well, in some countries that means you're an a-hole. Um, this, you crazy? In Argentina, it means you have a phone call. So our nonverbal communication is culturally based, and because of that, it sometimes adds to the confusion of a situation. You know, but what we need to do is we need to break those barriers down, find ways to um, build bridges across the cultural divide and diversity. I may have mentioned it before. There's a little store here run by a Korean family. The little old lady grabs bags of groceries. Her name's Mama San. Well, that's what everybody calls her. And I told her one day, "Come some hamnida," which means thank you very much. Now my grandchildren do that, and it built a bond between us. You know, she kind of understood what thank you meant, but we took the time to say thank you in her language, which brings people closer together. There's strength in diversity. You know, if you have a homogeneous group making decisions for everybody, it often leads to confusion because they don't understand the perspective of everybody else. Something that's going on right now is COVID-19. They're trying to find a vaccine for COVID-19, and they're looking for people to volunteer in these studies for the vaccine for COVID-19. You may have heard on the news that their problem is getting people of color to volunteer for the study because of a past history of a bunch of homogeneous groups have done to the people of color as far as medical fields. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up the Tuskegee experiment. It was wrong. We have since, academics anyway, have since admitted that it was wrong, but still it's there. And they can't find a good vaccine until they have a diverse group to study. um, Oftentimes power is socially constructed. You know, the mom and dad have power in your house because that's what you were raised with. Mom and dad are in charge. Police have power because oftentimes we yield that power to them. I, as the professor, have power because I'm the guy in charge of the class. A lot of times we give power to other people, not necessarily blatantly, but subversively, in the quiet, in the back. You know, in my family, we have a saying: "If Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy." So my grandkids will say, "Can I do so and so?" And I say, "No." Well, Grandma said I could, and she's the boss. So she's the boss because we have constructed it for my grandchildren to believe so, and it makes life easy. She's in charge. That's it. We got no problems with that. So power is socially constructed because as a society we give certain attributes of power to certain places and things. And oftentimes we're going to fall into the problem of pressure of conformity. You have to fall in line with this. And, you know, when I was in the military, we all wore the same uniform. We all marched the same. We saluted the same. We had certain rules that we followed because of the constructed rules of our society. And there was pressures to conform. If you did not conform to the military rules and manners and actions in society, then you were basically thrown out of the military. There are pressures to conform in college. You know, now you're a young adult, you come here, you're expected to do this, that, and the other. My daughter went to a community college, and they had rules that you couldn't wear hats, you couldn't wear pajamas, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, and you had to conform or you got kicked out of school. She came to the University of Louisiana, and there was people in flip flops and pajamas and hats, and she was like, "Wow, I couldn't believe the freedom." There are students that have been disenrolled and kicked out of universities for not following the requirements set for COVID. Social distancing, wearing masks, that type of stuff. So sometimes the pressures to conform are for the overall betterment of society. You follow these rules, less people get sick. That's a good thing. If you're driving and the rules are you do speed limit 65 and you want to do 70, then you're going to get pressured to conform by getting a ticket. Other times there's pressures to conform to society that don't necessarily make society better, but it's kind of like we've always done it that way. Let's do it that way. To me, I dress up. I have a shirt, a button-up shirt. A lot of times I have a tie, have a suit on, because that's the way I was taught it should be. I went to my brother-in-law's funeral in Illinois, and my wife and I, she's been gone for 30 something years, so most people didn't even know he had a sister. But I was standing there in the funeral home, and everybody thought that I worked there because I had a suit on. Their idea was casual wear, blue jeans, t-shirts, blue collar people. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just that, I felt out of place, and I felt, well, maybe I ought to just not wear a suit. But that's the way I was raised. You go to a funeral, wear a suit. So I was feeling this pressure to conform, to fit in, and not wear a suit. But I fought that feeling, and I didn't do it. So we have pressure to conform to society. We have pressure to conform to groups, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they aren't. You need to be aware of those pressures. Is it infringing on you, or are you hurting anything? And finally, ethics. We have to be ethical in our groups and our decision making. There's a lot of things that happen that people are unethical about. You need to have ethical behavior. You don't be lying to your group. Don't be cheating people. Don't. A lot of people. I don't want to say lie, but a lot of people misrepresent the truth to try to make themselves look better. That doesn't help the group, especially if it comes out. You need to be ethical and remember that what happens in the group stays in the group. The group decided this, and maybe 3 people dissented against it and didn't want it. Well, nobody else's business. If you are the leaker that says this, and this person would da, then it causes conflict within the group. You have to respect each other in the group, but you have to be honest with one another in the group. So that's about it for Chapter 5. I hope these videos are helpful. I will post this video. I'll post the PowerPoints and post the discussion. And then you guys reply to the discussion, and we'll keep moving on. You should be working in building your group's communication. I posted who's in what group last week. So hopefully you are contacting one another. If you have problems contacting one another, call me. My phone number's on my syllabus, or email me, and we'll see what we have to do. And I hope that helps. Other than that, I will see you next week. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.